about. It didn't make it the legalization initiative to your ballot there, but I think they're pushing to get it onto a ballot very quickly in your part of the country. But yes, they did take up the issue in other parts of the nation over this past week. California, Massachusetts, and Nevada all now have legalized marijuana for recreational use. Of course, a long list of other states, about two dozen states, have recently passed measures to allow for the medicinal use of cannabis and the extracts from it.
So what were the 4 states that passed it the other day?
Okay, we've had California, Massachusetts, Nevada have legalized it, but leading up to that, of course, it was already legal in 4 places, in Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington State, along with Washington, D.C. So we're looking at these 3 now, where it's legal as of until it makes it through paperwork.
Right. Yeah. So the federal government, with Trump coming in, have they signaled one way or the other if they're going to clamp down on this?
They've not. And here's what, the federal government's role in all of this is that they're sort of the overall regulator of interstate commerce. And so there is still a ban on the sale of the drug over state lines, even if it's between Nevada and California, where it's now legal. You can't make sales like that over those state lines. The federal government still prohibits that. So I think that people who have pushed for these initiatives state by state will now go to Congress. Then they'll start to say, hey, we're relaxing the laws out here has been happening state by state. Maybe you ought to turn over the regulation not to the feds, but to the states. So that's going to be the next push, I think, in Congress in terms of marijuana, McGraw.
Yeah, and Colorado has, of course, they're the first, so they sort of experienced all of these things first. And there was an argument in California that because it's considered drug money, they couldn't use banks. Have they solved that problem, or are they still dealing with cash only?
Yeah, it's still cash only. That's something the feds will have to look at, too, especially now with California jumping into this thing. That'll be the gigantic monster in terms of this industry. And by the way, a lot of the money that funded the pro-legalization effort in California came from marijuana companies based in Colorado, and those who would like to start cultivating, growing, and selling the stuff in California. They've already bought up large tracts of land there, McGraw, where normally you would see vegetables grown, maybe grapes for wine. Now you'll start to see marijuana grown there in the months ahead.
Very much like the gambling industry, right? The gambling money sort of lobbied some of the other states to make it legal to gamble in other states.
Yeah, and it's funny, it all sort of begins out in the West, Colorado this time, but neighboring Nevada now will have legalized marijuana too. The first one to have legal gambling will be, fifth to have legal marijuana.
And wow, that's just an interesting world we live in. I haven't made it out to Colorado yet to sort of see it, but the stories are pretty remarkable. You walk down the street and there's a marijuana shop, and you walk in, you buy your marijuana.
Yeah, I mean, and people who are still concerned about the long-term health effects on people, on young people specifically, and also they need to do studies. The detractors say of the effect of driving. It's against the law to drive drunk, and it's also against the law to drive high.
Yeah, and where you can have a breathalyzer for alcohol, there is no test for marijuana. So
tough to do that on the spot.
Yeah. Jim Ryan, ABC News correspondent, following the legalization of recreational marijuana. Jim, thanks for checking in.
Thanks, McGraw.
623 here, Big 550 KTRS. There's also some NFL players who are trying to lobby the NFL to take marijuana off of the drug test because they say marijuana is a much more effective drug when it comes to pain and pain management as opposed to medical-grade heroin. So they're giving these players pain pills that are getting them addicted to heroin and or some type of synthetic heroin prescribed by a doctor, whereas marijuana is much less harmful to the body and is a much better drug. Kyle Turley, remember Kyle Turley, the offensive lineman for the Rams? He was in with Martin Kilcoyne talking about that a couple weeks ago. And there's been a whole bunch of stories in Denver when visiting football teams come and play the Colorado, the Denver Broncos, that they go across the street and there's a cannabis shop there, and they go buy their cannabis. They have like an NFL room in the back. It's an interesting world we live in. 623 here.